Now we'll have Senator Moran, Boozman, and Cotton speak. Start Senator Moran.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here to introduce Robert Cekada. I thank you for that opportunity, and I thank him for asking me to serve in this capacity. I'm pleased to appear before you today to introduce Robert Cekada as the next director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, or ATF. In my capacity as the chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee that funds ATF, that funds the Department of Justice, I've had the opportunity on numerous occasions to get to know Rob. He currently serves as the deputy director of ATF and is, in my view, the consummate lawman. He worked the beat of the streets of New York City, rose through the ranks. He rose through the ranks due to his talent, his skill, his gumption, his dedication to his job, his dedication to our country. He's an honorable man who believes in both the enforcement of law and in public safety. The members of this committee know that ATF is a multifaceted agency. In particular, its regulation of firearms, a constitutionally protected right, has made it at times exceptionally politically challenging. I've had the opportunity to work in the capacity of my role on the Appropriations Subcommittee to try to deal with both the side of regulation of firearms as well as the right of enforcing our laws and protecting citizens that the ATF does well. I've heard from many sheriffs and police chiefs in Kansas and across the country.
And they
his son, Will Henry.
ATF's contribution to crime gun intelligence, particularly through something called the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, what we call NIBIN, is a game changer in public policy. And this nominee has been fully engaged in bringing technology to the efforts of protecting the public. Simply put, ATF is an agency that ensures violent criminals are put behind bars. Several years ago, in my capacity in appropriations, I was visiting with Attorney General William Barr, where I asked him, what do I need to know about the Department of Justice? And he told me something that I remembered. We have responsibility for appropriating for the FBI, the DEA, and the U.S. Marshals as well. But Attorney General Barr told me that ATF is the can-do agency and that they deserve our support. I think we have found, the administration has found a person of great capabilities, character, and dedication. Robert Cekada is a great nominee to be the next director of ATF, and I ask your consideration of that process, in this process, and I hope you find him favorable to serve in this capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The 5 people being nominated in question today come forward, and before you sit down, I would like to swear you. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All have answered affirmatively. Each of you can, please sit down. Each of you can, before you give your statement, introduce your family and friends. Whatever you want to say, you can say. And we'll start with you, Mr. Cekada.
Good morning. Thank you. Really briefly, before I give my statement, I would like to just thank my son, Robbie, who traveled up here from Florida late last night to be with me today and support me. My wife and daughter are both in school today and couldn't be here today to join me. I have many of my friends and coworkers from ATF here, in addition to many state and local law enforcement officers that I've had the honor of working with over the many years that have been involved with ATF, NYPD, and the Plantation Police Department. Good morning, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, and the distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you today. I'm deeply honored and humbled by President Trump's nomination to serve as the Director of Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. I am grateful to the President for his confidence and his unwavering commitment to backing the men and women of law enforcement who put themselves in harm's way every day to protect the American people. I'm also thankful to this committee for its consideration of my nomination. I would like to begin by thanking my family. My wife, Leah, and my children, Robbie and Gianna, have been my constant source of strength and purpose throughout my career. Over the past several years, my wife has courageously battled stage 3 breast cancer while holding our family together as I commuted between Florida and Washington in continued service to this nation. Public service, particularly in law enforcement, demands real sacrifice, and none of it is possible without the families who stand behind us who are serving. I also want to recognize my parents who are no longer with us. In 1966, they fled communist Yugoslavia and came to the United States in search of freedom, opportunity, and the rule of law. They became naturalized citizens in 1973 and believe deeply in what this country represents, that liberty matters, that hard work matters, and that the law should protect the innocent while holding the guilty accountable. The journey shaped my values and instilled in me a lifelong commitment to protecting freedom under the Constitution. I've spent nearly 34 years in local and federal law enforcement with a singular mission: keeping the American people safe. From my early career as a police officer and detective in New York City through my current service as Deputy Director at ATF, my focus has been clear: identify and dismantle violent criminal organizations, remove dangerous offenders from our streets, and to protect the communities we serve. At ATF, I've had the privilege of working alongside extraordinary professionals: special agents, industry operations investigators, forensic scientists, intelligence analysts, and professional staff who carry out some of the most difficult and dangerous work in law enforcement. ATF's core mission is public safety, targeting violent criminals, disrupting firearms trafficking networks that arm gangs and cartels, investigating bombings and arsons, and supporting our partners with world-class forensic and intelligence capabilities. If confirmed, my foremost priority will be to ensure ATF supports President Trump's mandate to make America safer by remaining relentlessly focused on violent crime. ATF's mission is not to burden lawful gun owners or undermine the Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is a constitutional guarantee, and I am committed to protecting and preserving it. Effective law enforcement and respect for civil liberties are not competing goals. They are inseparable obligations. I am equally committed to supporting the men and women of ATF. They deserve clear mission focus, strong leadership, modern tools, and accountability at every level. Excellence will be recognized and misconduct will not be tolerated. Finally, I respect the essential role of Congress in this committee. Oversight is vital to maintaining public trust. If confirmed, I commit to being transparent, responsive, and forthright as we work together to protect the American people. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here before you today. I look forward to answering your questions.
I'm going to start with Mr. Cekada. We have 5 minutes each. You've been Deputy Director. You've been there a long time. You know what works and doesn't work. So given your unique perspective, what are your priorities for the Bureau if confirmed?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your question. The top priorities for ATF will remain violent crime in the forms of illegal use of firearms, illegal use of explosives, and criminal acts of arson. We will prioritize those efforts as we work with our state and local partners around the country. As you stated earlier, and we discussed yesterday, 2 days ago, ATF is a small agency, and we are interdependent on our state and local partners. We currently have about 1,400 task force officers. We have firm commitments with our partners to continue using crime gun intelligence, E-Trace, NIBIN, and DNA to work with our partners to identify who the scourges of their communities are, the people that are responsible for using firearms illegally to commit violent crime, and ATF will do that as our primary focus. We will also attempt to use the budget that we've been allocated to modernize some critical systems that are used to work with our industry partners with, for example, the forms and licensing systems are over 25 years old, and they're very antiquated and cause significant delays in processing of forms, which unnecessarily burden the American public and the industry members. I think that would be a significant efficiency. And then, in turn, we will make sure that during the next several years, we follow President Trump's Second Amendment executive order to review all ATF policies, procedures, and regulations to ensure that none of those infringe upon the Second Amendment unnecessarily.
You and I discussed the whistleblower that exposed $20 million of waste because of fraudulent activity within ATF. Thank you for doing that, but I also hope that emphasizes listen to every whistleblower so they never have to come to Congress and seek the protection of whistleblower protection laws.
Mr. Cekada, good meeting in our office. Enjoyed meeting you. Your highest priority, you say, is stop violent crime. It's a priority well worth your attention and ours as well. At least 2/3 of the ATF agents, 1,778 of the 2,572 agents, have reportedly been diverted from preventing gun violence to carry out the president's immigration agenda. Do you support the president's proposed cuts to ATF?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your question, and thank you for making time to speak with me. That number is incorrect. I think we discussed that yesterday. The number of agents that have been diverted to focus on Title VIII enforcement is actually averaging somewhere between 75 and 100 agents per day. The remainder of ATF agents focus on violent crime throughout the country on a daily basis.
Do you support the idea of diverting ATF agents to engage in immigration enforcement?
I support ATF agents being used to enforce federal statutes and supporting our federal partners. The number of agents that have been used in these efforts have been very much focused on violent crime, specifically assisting HSI and ICE on illegal aliens that are members of MS-13, 18th Street, illegal aliens that are carrying firearms. So in those efforts, 100% ATF supports our partners.
Thank you.
Mr. Cekada, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. I believe that the elimination of the $200 National Firearms Act tax stamp was a significant victory for Second Amendment rights. This is a constitutionally protected right, the right to bear arms, and when we attach a significant tax burden to it, that's got to be taken into account. Now, unfortunately, that didn't eliminate all laws that might fall, under the same argument. We still have pretty significant restrictions in place, including various registration requirements that exist under the National Firearms Act, not all of which I believe have clear constitutional justification. But even before we get to the constitutional justification, which may tie in to the policy points, I wanted to ask you a little bit about whether and to what extent or in what way there is, law enforcement or other policy-based justification that makes it, compelling, makes it make sense, makes it necessary for one reason or another to have these restrictions in place as to things like silencers, short-barreled rifles, and short-barreled shotguns. Can you think of good policy-based law enforcement justification for having those on the books?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your question. As far as policy, our enforcement of those firearms applies strictly under the NFA. If, let's say, for example, they weren't under the NFA, they would still be required, they would still be firearms under the GCA.
Right, so they're not unregulated. And in order to buy them, you would still have to go through the background check process, which is, which is significant. And depending on how busy they are at the time when you're buying a firearm, you may have to wait minutes, or it might be hours, or whatever it is. But it's not completely unregulated at that point.
That's correct.
So these are additional restrictions slapped on top of those restrictions already applicable to all firearms. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Through the NFA, that's correct.
Okay. Now, and that certainly, grasp that, certainly as to the short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns. Let's talk about suppressors for a minute, the sound suppressors, commonly known as silencers, but a technical term within the industry is sound suppressors. Tell me what policy justification. I think that one falls as legitimate as the criticism is of these restrictions as to the other items that we've discussed, like short-barreled shotguns and short-barreled rifles. It seems to me to be particularly difficult to justify the additional restrictions as to sound suppressors, because sound suppressors are themselves not guns, correct?
Under the law, sir, suppressors are considered firearms under the Gun Control Act. So that's why they're regulated under the GC. Well, they're regulated under both GCA and the NFA.
Right. But unlike actual guns, the suppressor is not capable of firing a bullet. Unlike guns, suppressors are there, as the name implies, to suppress sound. So that people who use guns, whether that's for hunting, for target practice, for sporting of one sort or another, they are subjected to a bombardment of sound that is louder than it otherwise might need to be. And for people who use certain kinds of firearms that happen to be really loud, they've got to use some kind of hearing protection on their ears. The question arises, what decent public policy justification or law enforcement need might compel the United States government, with all the force of the United States government, and with enforcement power given to the to ATF, to restrict those, given that there is a legitimate public policy justification for actually wanting to encourage people to do it, because it tends to protect people's hearing. Can you think of any good reason why we should not allow those, or at least why we shouldn't allow them without this additional step above and beyond what applies to firearms generally?
Again, sir, from ATF's perspective, ATF is bound by the law at this point, and if Congress chose to move suppressors out of the NFA into the GCA, ATF would be supportive of Congress's decision.
Well, that is very good to know, because we periodically do introduce legislation, and when we do that with basically every department, every agency I'm familiar with, we tend in my office, and I think my colleagues do the same, to seek technical input from the agency involved in the enforcement of that law. And it's good to know in advance sometimes what that might look like. So I appreciate your perspective on this one. Congress does need to revisit these issues, particularly given that sound suppression can be very important for health and safety reasons. There is not a legitimate health and safety reason, certainly, to treat this not just as a firearm, but as a particular type of firearm that requires further restriction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see my time's expired.
Before Senator Hirano, I'd like to enter into the record a letter supporting Mr. Cekada's nomination from Knox Williams, the president of the American Suppressor Association. It's a guns rights organization. The American Suppressor Association endorsed Mr. Cekada's nomination and praised his, quote, unwavering commitment to accountability, transparency, and collaboration with law-abiding firearm owners and industry stakeholders, end of quote. Without objection, this will be entered into the record. Senator Hirano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to all of our nominees, your families and friends. I ask the following two initial questions of all nominees who appear before any of the committees on which I sit as a way to determine fitness of the nominees to serve. So I will start with Mr. Cekada, and we'll just go right down the line with the responses to my two questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
Good morning, ma'am. No, I have not.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, I have not.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Cekada, welcome. Thanks for coming to my office to talk about ballistics tracing. I believe we agree that when local law enforcement roll up to a crime scene and find, for instance, a cartridge in the sidewalk, the quicker that those local police officers can identify the firearm that left that cartridge, that leaves distinctive markings on a cartridge, the better off they are, and that can both help officer safety and investigative effectiveness. Is that correct?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your time yesterday, and yes, you are correct. You're referring to NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network.
Yep. I look forward to working with you on trying to make sure that the database is robust as possible and that access to the information is as quick as possible. In a crime scene at night on a street, you want to know as quickly as you can where that came from. And so I'm glad that we agree on that and look forward to making further progress.
Mr. Cekada, I want to come with you, and thank you for your time. We talked yesterday about the Memphis Safe Task Force. President Trump, AG Bondi, Director Patel have done a great work with all the federal agencies in Memphis. And as I told you yesterday, they have made more than 6,500 arrests. They've taken 1,500 illegal firearms off the streets. They have found 148 missing children, and it's a joint effort. You've got all these federal and state agencies that are there. ATF is a part of this. And talk about what you would do as director to support the effort of the Memphis Safe Task Force, which has cut crime in Memphis by over 50%. And I'd like to hear what you would do to not only Memphis, but other cities to keep them safe and free of these criminals.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you for making time to speak to me yesterday. ATF is a proud partner of the Memphis Safe Task Force, as we are in the Make DC Safe and Beautiful Task Force as well. As everyone knows, ATF is a small federal agency. We have about 40 ATF agents in Memphis that are assigned to this task force, and we've made up for about 32% of the federal cases that have been brought forward in Memphis for federal firearms violations. So our small team is a significant contributor, and I think someone called us the can-do agency earlier, and I plan on continuing to support that task force. We, as an agency, every year like to have surge operations around the countries in cities like Memphis and DC that are being impacted by violent crime. We don't do it alone. We always work with our state and local partners, with other federal partners, to ensure that we are using a whole of government approach to make the largest impact on violent crime in those communities.
Well, we appreciate the number of these cases that have been able to be tried federally. We have a weak DA in Memphis, and so getting these into federal court, it has been helpful in making the city safe. Mr. Cekada, let me come back to you. On firearms cases, when you're talking about these federal firearms cases, what's the proper role of the ATF in enforcing those federal laws while also respecting the constitutional rights of the individual and the Second Amendment?
Thank you for your question, Senator. ATF's, I think, in a unique position. We have the ability to use crime gun intelligence. I mentioned that earlier. It's intel that we gained from E-Trace, from NIBIN, and now DNA. So ATF is not driving around neighborhoods or going through people's homes looking to burden legal firearms owners with our enforcement actions. When ATF comes into a neighborhood, we've used intelligence to identify who the people are responsible for violent crime and hold those people accountable to the fullest extent of the federal authorities allowed by law. When we do that, we've seen significant impacts and significant sentences that don't not only remove those people from those communities that they've been terrorizing, but they serve as a significant deterrent for others that would choose that path as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cekada, I'm actually really grateful you're here and really relieved by your nomination. Your years in dedicated service are something I have a lot of respect for and gratitude for. I've met so many ATF agents over the years and have found them to be remarkably committed professional public servants and the fact that you would lead the agency that has so many means a lot to me. I'm worried, obviously, about the direction of the ATF. I have been for years, since I was a mayor, and we found out that the overwhelming majority of our gun crimes were done with people who acquired guns illegally. If we were just enforcing the laws, we could have driven down violence as much as I advocate for other gun safety laws. The ones we have right now, should the ATF be given the resources and manpower to enforce the law, we could save a lot of lives in our country. And so, unfortunately, that since the president's inauguration a year ago, the ATF has really been under attack, further attacks from the gun industry and high-ranking administration officials. Trump proposed gutting the ATF's budget by $400 million, already starved as an agency. The administration has diverted thousands of ATF agents away from investigating illegal firearm trafficking, bombing, tax evasion, and tracing guns from violent crimes to their perpetrators, to instead do immigration enforcement. And this has primarily resulted in the rounding up of nonviolent immigrants and not getting weapons out of the hands of people that are doing horrible things with them. The administration even suggested eliminating the ATF altogether, which is stunning to me to hear this administration wanting to defund the police that do some of the most important work for keeping us safe. And so I have a few questions just about the direction of the agency. And I just want to emphasize, again, my gratitude that you're up for this position, but the importance of you maintaining your independence and not giving the gun industry or others who want to defund you any sway over the decisions you make. And so I just want to say for the record, if you can just state, do you think abolishing or defunding ATF would risk public safety?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your comments. I think ATF plays a pivotal role in America's communities on reducing violent crime. And although I can't control the budgets, I think there would be a negative impact on America's communities.
Thank you very much. A simple yes would have sufficed, but I appreciate that. So this legislation is obviously misguided. I hope that you will take steps to ensure that the ATF is fully staffed, fully resourced, able to get its mission to protect the public from violent crime. Since 2007, when I first met with the head of the acting head of the ATF, they just told me the blunt truth about how much more they could do with more officers, and I hope that you'll advocate for that. The diversion of agents to conduct immigration enforcement. We know that Trump authorized ATF agents to conduct arrests of immigrants without permanent legal status. By September, about 80% of the ATF's roughly 2,500 agents had been assigned to the Immigration Task Force at some point. How many ATF agents are currently assigned to the Department of Homeland Security to conduct immigration enforcement?
Sir, ATF has never had more than about 75 to 100 agents on a day working on immigration enforcement in support of ICE and HSI.
So you said about 100 and currently at any time?
No more than 100 at any given time.
Okay. Have the diversions impacted ATF's capacity to enforce our national firearms laws?
Not from our perspective. ATF in those operations has been focused on offenders that were illegally armed with firearms, MS-13, 18th Street, illegal aliens that have...
No, I'm well aware and frankly grateful for the work that you do. It's just hard for me to believe that 100+ agents taken out of that important work going to arrest people with no criminal records is not taking you away from your work. More agents doing that work, I find, would probably help keep us much safer from the violent crime that is most concerning to the American public. I'd like to enter into the record an article from The Trace, which quotes David Hamilton, a former senior special agent who retired in 2021. He said, and I quote, "It is hugely disruptive. You work on a complex federal investigation for years in the making, which includes covert gun buys and intercepts and wiretaps. Now they're being told you can't work at all on that investigation for an indefinite period of time. Most of those leads are going to die on the vine." That's a former agent that has a lot of experience that counters this testimony that taking that many agents away doesn't undermine your mission. I want to ask one last question. Previous administration.
Without objection, the documents made a part of the record.
I'm so grateful for you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm grateful for you. I'd be more grateful if you begin to wrap up, my good friend.
I will wrap up with this last question. You with a gavel is a terrifying thing, so I'm going to remove myself as quickly as possible.
I've got the gavel now.
I just please don't throw it at me, sir. I know your arm's pretty good.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, the last question, then I'm done. Previous administrations have released data about dealer inspections and trafficking investigations initiated by ATF at regular intervals. None of that data has been released during the past year of this administration. Is that something you're willing to do under your leadership? How many dealer inspections has the ATF conducted since January 2025?
Briefly, sir.
Yes, sir. I don't have the number of inspections that we've conducted with me, but we can provide you with that answer after the hearing. We've continued to do dealer inspections uninhibited. I would like to put on the record, I have no clue who Mr. Hamilton is, and I've been here for 21 years almost. And I'll go back to 1994 when I was a task force officer working with ATF, so almost 32 years. We are working Title III, RICO gang cases. I challenge his statement as to the work that ATF is doing. We do have about 100 people working on immigration enforcement, but we are not impacting violent crime in a negative way as a result of that work that we're doing with Title VIII.
Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cekada, I want to ask you, well, during the Biden administration first, the ATF issued several administrative rules that violated statutory authorities that were enacted by Congress. In a previous life, when I was Attorney General of Missouri, helped lead one of the lawsuits against one of those rules, the frame a receiver rule. Eventually, a different lawsuit came up against the rule, and the Supreme Court sort of sidestepped the ultimate issue on that. But there are similar rules, such as the stabilizing brace rule and the engaged in business rule, that threaten to make responsible, law-abiding Americans into criminals and left gun owners with vague, difficult-to-follow mandates. Americans who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights and follow the law in good faith lacked any real guidance and felt like the ATF was trying to trap and punish them. The Second Amendment is a fundamental and inalienable right, so it's especially concerning when administrative state agencies like ATF infringe not only on the Second Amendment, but also the Constitution's structural separation of powers by issuing rules that are equal parts illegal and impossible to comply with. I understand you want the ATF to return to a true law enforcement mission rather than harassing law-abiding gun owners. So I want to ask you today if you'll commit to repealing or otherwise fixing this nightmare scenario for gun owners by revisiting the frame and receiver rule, the stabilizing brace rule, and the engaged in business rule, and any other overreaching administrative rules in a timely manner.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you again for your question. I can assure you that ATF, under my direction, is following President Trump's Second Amendment executive order. We are currently undergoing a thorough review of all regulations. I can't speak to the specific regulations because of the guidance under APA. In the future, when the President and the Department of Justice team that our work is ready to be put out for a notice of proposed rulemaking, there will be a draft of all those rules for everyone to review. And we fully encourage everyone to please review those, ask your constituents to do the same to make sure that ATF thoroughly took those concerns into.
So if I hear you right, if you're reviewing all of the rules, the three that I mentioned would be included in that, correct?
Potentially.
What's that?
Potentially, sir. I can't.
Let's lock that in. Let's lock that in.
I can't do that, sir, but I would be glad to tell you.
Okay,
that
I think that follow-up on that particular point will be important.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
As relates to another issue, the ATF is the primary regulator of the commercial explosives industry, as you know. It has been more than 2 decades since the last comprehensive review of ATF's regulations for commercial explosives occurred. What's your plan to modernize these regs that are, at this point, pretty outdated?
So those are part of our review as well, sir. And unfortunately, I can't give you any specificity, and I apologize. I don't want you to think I'm being challenging with you.
No, that's all right. Yeah. We got time to follow up.
Thank you.
Mr. Cekada, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me yesterday. I just want to follow up on Senator Booker's question. You mentioned that at any one time, 100 agents could be essentially reassigned to work on immigration cases. That's 100 agents out of how many overall?
Good morning, Senator. That's 100 agents out of the total agent cadre, which is about 2,400 agents.
And I think when we got together, you mentioned that you still have to do some considerable hiring to get up to the capacity you need?
Yes, sir. The administration has directed us to increase our special agent numbers up, actual special agents up to 3,000 agents, which would bring us additional 800 or so agents to get to that number.
And what is the need for the additional 800 agents?
Completely stay focused on violent crime throughout the United States and our cities most impacted by violent crime.
And the additional increment of 800 agents, would it enable you to go after more violent crime?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't that indicate then that taking 100 agents away from dealing with violent crime to focus on immigration when you're already short 800 agents is going to have an impact on the mission?
I think that, look, any time we work on the areas that we're responsible for, whether it's tobacco, arson, or explosives, are all ATF's purview. Title VIII was assigned to us as a purview earlier in 2025. So in support of the administration's mission and also in support of our partners at HSI, we've done our best to have that be the least impactful, especially while we stayed focused on violent offenders that were illegal aliens. Again, gang members, as I mentioned to you in our conversation. And just recently, just this week, we had in Title VIII operations a person that threatened federal law enforcement with a rifle and put on social media that they were going to empty a clip of 30 rounds into agents standing on the street. ATF agents promptly identified that person and removed that offender from the streets.
Mrs. Cekada, I appreciate that, but I think it's really incontestable that if you need more agents to go after violent criminals that are using guns in the commission of crimes, then diverting some of the agents you already have, 100 agents, to work on immigration enforcement, often generally involving people who have no criminal record apart from being undocumented, is going to dilute your effectiveness. But let me turn to another topic, and that is we discussed the issue of these 3D printers and the printing of weapons. Are you seeing a trend here? Are we seeing more of these ghost guns show up in crime? Has it plateaued? What is the trend? How concerned are you about it? And what do you think we can do about it?
Again, thank you. We are seeing a trend as it relates to ghost guns, and I'll include in your definition of guns we also look at privately made firearms as the description we use for 3D printed firearms and for drop-in autoseers, which can convert firearms to shoot fully automatically. This is a trend that we are seeing. Some of these items are printed here within the United States on a printer that can be purchased for a few $100s, and others are being brought into the United States through China. ATF has seen trends where these products are showing up primarily in jurisdictions that have very strict firearms regulations. In other areas of the country, we don't see much proliferation of these types of firearms. So regardless, ATF is focused on identifying those sources. And I'm sorry to tell you again, but we use all of the tools we have to try to identify who's manufacturing these 3D printed firearms. And one of the greatest tools we have is our laboratory here in Amandale, Maryland. They have the ability to identify the types of polymers that are used and understand where those polymers came from so that we could try to identify whether that firearm, after it was made, traveled in interstate commerce. But we also use DNA to identify DNA profiles that were present for the manufacturer of that firearm as well.
One last quick question. Are you seeing a trend in terms of what kind of crimes are being perpetrated with these weapons?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, when prohibited persons find their way into receiving firearms, it's generally a gun crime of some sort, whether it's a shooting, an armed robbery, or other crime of violence.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the nominees for being here. Congratulations to each of you. It's great to see you. Mr. Cekada, let me just start with you, if I could. Let's start with the Second Amendment. Missouri, I think that we've got to be the strongest protector of the Second Amendment anywhere in the country. We're a constitutional carry state. We have no state level permit requirements for concealed carry. Our Constitution, our state Constitution, inscribes the right to keep and bear arms and designates it unalienable in our state Constitution. It subjects any restriction on that right under our state Constitution to strict scrutiny. So we're very, very serious about it, and the state has repeatedly signaled, and we're talking now about voters who've adopted this. This isn't just the state legislature. These are our voters who have put this into our state constitution. We've repeatedly said we don't want the federal government encroaching on our right to keep and bear arms in the state of Missouri. The last administration, however, did this repeatedly. Back in 2022, the Biden DOJ actually asked local sheriffs across Missouri for records of concealed carry permit holders, which state law explicitly forbids the sheriffs to turn over. And so you can imagine the conflict there. I mean, here you've got DOJ saying, give us your records. And they're saying, well, the state law forbids it, criminalizes it. You're asking me to turn over something that's illegal under state law. And the bigger question is, why do you need records, lists of concealed permit holders in the state of Missouri? Why would the federal government need to have this? They asked for it from multiple counties. They also, as you know, pursued the zero tolerance revocation policy, the expanded framer receiver rule, all things that Missouri and Missourians have viewed as massive overreach onto our Second Amendment rights. Here's my question for you. Can you commit that under your leadership, ATF will go in a different direction than the last administration, that you'll focus your law enforcement resources on criminals as opposed to law-abiding citizens who have rights under both the federal and state constitutions? What's your answer?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your question. I can assure you with absolute certainty that ATF, first of all, under my watch as the deputy director since April of last year, has 1,000% been focused on holding people accountable who have committed violent crimes. We're not here trying to burden unnecessarily the American citizen who has the complete right to exercise their Second Amendment right to bear arms, and we will not be doing that in the future if I am so confirmed.
You've got 20 years of experience over that, I think, at the ATF, and then a lot of experience in anti-gang enforcement with NYPD. Just give us a sense of how you'll bring that experience to bear to ensure that the operational resources, should you be confirmed, the operational resources of the agency will be prioritized towards dismantling violent criminal networks, illegal firearm trafficking networks, and the like. How are you going to ensure that this is the priority, not querying the lists of permit holders in my state, for example?
Yes, sir. So first off, unlike some prior ATF directors, I will still be a sworn law enforcement officer if I am confirmed. I've done this job from the ground level police officer, learning to be an investigator, a task force officer with ATF. I have 34 years of experience of not telling people to go out and make cases. I made the cases myself. So I know what it takes. I know that we can't do it alone because we're a small agency. I've worked with practically every ATF agent that's actually out here making cases. We all know each other. And here at ATF, we respect federal law enforcement officers that do the job, not talk about doing the job. Those of us that have done the job, we know to stay focused on violent criminals, and that's what you pay us for, and we will continue to do that.
Terrific. Thank you. I look forward to working with you.
Mr. Cekada, how do you say it? Cekada. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Cekada?
Yes, Cekada, yes, ma'am.
Okay, Cekada. I want to start with you. I know many Americans have been concerned with the ATF's history, particularly as it relates to the Second Amendment. But based on your testimony here today and your track record at the ATF, I have full confidence that under your leadership, the ATF will not make the same mistakes that we've seen them make in the past, particularly in the Biden administration. But that being said, I want to ask you about a couple of different areas of ATF's jurisdiction. First, I'd like you to speak to some of ATF's work in combating the constant flow of illicit Chinese vapes that have been coming into our nation and truly putting our children at risk. I know ATF was involved in a recent seizure of more than about, 2 million illegal vapes and vaping products. I want to commend you on that great success, but can you speak to some of the work that you've done to prevent those Chinese vapes from harming American children, and how do you commit to working, when confirmed, on moving that forward?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your question. If confirmed, ATF will continue to work with our federal partners at the Food and Drug Administration, Customs and Border Protection, DEA, the Postal Service. We are working tirelessly together to identify these importers that are undoubtedly coming from China, but very closely affiliated with the cartels in Mexico. The cartels are very much tied to the distributors that we find spread around the country that are selling these illicit vapes to our minors, to our children in school districts. And frankly, they've strategically placed themselves around our military bases and are targeting our service members. Again, these are chemicals that are unregulated, that are undoubtedly causing harm to our children and our youth, and the same threat is being posed against our younger service members. And we will continue doing that. Again, we have resources that we're trying to balance across the country. In many of these cases, violent crime is tied to them. There's illegal firearms that are found at these distributors and retailers. There's gang members and illegal aliens that are involved in this distribution as well. So we will stay focused on this as well if I am confirmed.
Good. I'd like to work with you on that when you're confirmed. I think this is an area where we're just scratching the surface. You just alluded to it in your answer, but we know when we get there, not only is it harming children, not only are we looking at what's happening at our military bases, but a lot of times this unlocks just a world of crime that unfortunately puts Americans at risk. And I think we need to do more to crack down on this. So I appreciate that. Additionally, I want to discuss some of the great work that the ATF does in Huntsville, Alabama at Redstone Arsenal. As you know, ATF's National Center for Explosive Training and Research is located in Huntsville and is a national hub for life-saving explosives training. Can you highlight some of the important work that the ATF is doing there at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville?
Sure, ma'am. So the NCEDR works primarily to ensure that our state and local law enforcement officers are prepared to handle some of the biggest threats that our country faces as it relates to explosives. In particular, improvised explosives devices that are made from household chemicals and chemicals that are found in Home Depot and Lowe's. These are recipes, frankly, that have been compiled from our international terrorist organizations and have spread amongst the internet through social media outlets and pose a definite threat to our country. We work very closely with the Army and have developed a program called the Ravens Challenge. Ravens Challenge is something that ATF distributes on behalf of the Army with our partners with the FBI working alongside with us to ensure that our state and local partners are trained on handling a mass casualty event that would be tied to a homemade explosives or improvised explosives incident. So it ensures that we all know how to work together, responding and working in our areas of expertise without unnecessarily hindering the other from being able to accomplish the mission.
Thank you. I look forward to continuing the great work that's done there and partnering with you once confirmed to continue to elevate it.